Alright, welcome back to the Roadside Rescue YouTube channel. I'm Ernest. We're going to be doing a pre-purchase, well, it's not a pre-purchase inspection. It's the same deal though. The person has owned this car here and they just want to kind of look over inspection, see how the complete state of the vehicle is. This video is powered by 𝘬𝑍. We've reviewed their scan tool before and done a couple giveaways of their things, and they've given us an even higher powered scan tool to look at this time. So that being said, first things first, we're going to plug this scan tool in, get a look at it, and get a look at the computer, make sure everything's running how it's supposed to. All right, first look at this scan tool. It is pretty awesome. It's got the little connector right here. Cool thing about it is you just push it in and it pops out. So we'll plug that in. It's got LED indicators on the bottom there, red, green, and blue, to indicate that it's working and connected, and then pull up some live data and some graphs. The only thing this doesn't do is bidirectional. Other than that, it does pretty much everything. I really like these Bluetooth OBD2 readers nowadays because you used to be tied to the car with a tether, but now you can walk around to the hood while you're looking at stuff and run your scans on the vehicles. This one's pretty cool. It'll automatically detect the vehicle based off of its VIN number and all of its features, and go ahead and do that. This 𝘮𝑍800BT scanner has free lifetime software upgrade, 28 hot services. There's instructions for special functions to guide you how to reset things. It's got the carry case provided with it. Check out the link in the description down below. The original price is $450.99. We've got an 11% off code that 𝘬𝑍's given the viewers, so that's 𝘬𝑍800 plus a $50 coupon, so your final price is $351.38. That's $100 different. That's good for a week, so starting today, that code is active and you can get it within a week if you're interested in the scan tool. Super nice scan tool, and let's check it out. All right, so here we're going to do a health scan of the vehicle. It's going to take just a minute and let us know the condition of everything, emission status as well. I expect everything to be good, but we'll pull up some live data, look at the graphs here, just make sure everything's running great on this car. All right, while we wait for that, we're going to look at everything up here. Condition of power steering fluid, brake fluid. This actually is a manual, so we'll look at the clutch as well, which is brake fluid. We're going to clean up these battery terminals because they're pretty old, and my wife used to have a Hyundai with the same engine in here, so I'm pretty familiar with it. We'll pull the cover off, look at spark plugs, listen to the compression. I'm not going to do a manual compression test on this as the lower end inspection, and just look everything over, clean it up if anything looks out of place. We'll look at suspension stuff on these Hyundais. The suspension stuff's pretty small, so usually you have to end up doing quite a bit of suspension work after a while, so I suspect that's the case here. But we'll push on these, see if these struts are holding the weight of this car, if those are worn out, and look at everything else as well, ball joints, and we'll jack it up and look under there, and I'll show you what we're talking about. But we'll clean up this, look at spark plugs, and then when we're done with this, we'll go back to that computer after it's done running its scan and look at everything, which I'm expecting to be good. All right, so we've got the vehicle selected here, health report. We'll do system selection, and we can look at everything here. Fault codes, no trouble codes. That's what I expected. No check engine light was on. And here we've got a detailed data stream, so we can watch things like, let's just choose a few: cranking signal, engine coolant temperature sensor, engine speed. That's fine. We'll choose a couple, and we'll look at their graphs because this is pretty interesting to watch. Let's see the graph here. We can watch the engine speeds here. That's the thing about these nice scan tools, is they graph at such a higher rate than those lower end ones. The lower end scan tools, they'll have a data point every few seconds, and so you really get this bad graph of data, where on these they're graphing at a lot quicker rate, and so you get a much more detailed graph of what's going on with the engine when you're diagnosing things like O2 sensors and such. That's super helpful. So super nice tool. Again, this is the 𝘬𝑍 tool. We've looked at one of their code readers in a jump pack before. Super nice tool. So there's a link in the description if this looks like it tickles your fancy. Check it out, and thanks to 𝘬𝑍 for sending this in. All right, now that we've got that computer test run, we're going to clean up these battery terminals. You want to make sure you do this last, because if you disconnect these terminals and cut power to that computer, it's going to erase its data. So yeah, just make sure you do that second. Not a big deal. Good to get these cleaned up. Reset that computer is fine. since it doesn't have any issues. Sometimes if they have issues, you don't want to really go and reset the computer. You'll mess with fuel trims, can affect how the vehicle runs, but this one's running great. It doesn't have any issues, so we're fine to take this off and clean it up before addressing any issues. You know, if there was an issue, you'd want to address those first, is what I'm saying. So the link for all the tools I use in the description down below. This one is the most commonly asked about. Just get everything nice and clean here. And that just scrapes a nice layer of the material off so that it's got a good connection underneath there. You want to make sure they're tight enough they don't wiggle. Good to go back together here. Good. Now let's go ahead and take the beauty cover off this engine. Check out some spark plugs and some stuff under here, but belts look awesome. These, I don't believe, have big issues with their timing belts, but we're going to want to look and see if it's been replaced, and that's going to be a recommended service if it's at its interval as well. So the thing with these beauty covers as well is they're always in the way whenever you have to do something on your engine other than like change the oil. And even then sometimes they're in the way if you have to change the oil to get the fill cap out. I always like to just leave these hand tied in. That way if somebody finds themselves on the side of the road and has an issue that they need to address, they can just grab these by hand and loosen them off. These don't serve much of a purpose. Some vehicles, they act as like a sound dampener on top of that engine. This one you can see is all plastic. And sometimes I'm like, oh great, I have time to put everything back together, and I forget. I like close the hood and then I look over and I've left that cover sitting on the ground. I forgot to put it back on. So, oh, the issue my wife's had as well was leaking seals on these tube seals. So that could be an issue here if we've got oil down here. So I'm going to check all of those for oil, and then we'll pull one of the spark plugs to look at condition. And we did a cranking compression sound test, just listening for any uneven crank, and it sounded even. So you get a full compression test with a more expensive investigation, but this one's the cheap one, and these are all dry, so that's good. Put back in there, click it on. Let's pull one of those spark plugs. The only thing I don't like about this AutoZone toolkit I have, this is real nitpicky, is there's no long extensions, so I have to like piece together adapters and a short extension usually to grab a spark plug if I've only grabbed that kit. So, oh wow, that's in there tight. I don't know if I'm gonna mess around with spark plugs that are in there too tight though. That was about as tight as I would have dealt with. If you ever have to get anything longer than this on spark plugs, it's really time to evaluate whether or not it's worth taking out and stripping out or anything. So it was about as tight as I would have liked, but it came out. We're looking here, we've got some oil leaking around this valve cover. I'll address that here on the front. It's leaking this valve cover gasket, but that's one of those things, totally up to them whether or not they want to replace at this moment. We'll look up and see if there's a service record on the timing belt of this vehicle. I'm also going to pull this cover back, see if I can do any sort of visual on as to whether or not it looks brand new. You usually can't tell visually though, but it'll give you a good idea if it's in real bad shape or real good shape. Anything in between you can't tell. At least you can't tell well enough to back up your diagnosis. Those look pretty old spark plugs. Yeah, they look pretty old. They've actually got grease on them, which is good. I'll ask her if she's had them replaced recently. Looking at them, I wouldn't say that, you know, anything concerns me with them. They just look a little bit old. But you know, I guess these are iridiums. Let's see, yeah, they're iridiums. They've got a 15-year life. I'm guessing they look like they're just a few years old, so nothing concerning there. I'll talk to her though and see if she knows when they were replaced last and what she wants to do about those, but I wouldn't recommend replacing those spark plugs from what I've seen. Okay. Get that tightened back in. All these little Hoses and everything up here look clean. Everything looks really clean up here, so that's a plus. No dry rotting on any of these hoses. The spark plug wires themselves actually look pretty good. So all around, good condition up here. Make sure this isn't too hot. If you can squeeze that hose and it's tight, you don't want to open this. That's not hot nor tight. Again, or if you can't put your hand on it for more than like 10 seconds. And that's actually low on coolant. So we'll put some coolant in there for her. Make sure this gets enough coolant before we're done here. But if you can see in here, nothing there. All right, we've got that coolant topped off. Let's check the other fluids. And it was probably about 1/4 gallon low, about 1/5 to 1/4 gallon. So for this little small system, that's a significant little amount, but nothing crazy at that point. Let me actually pull the cover on this first and look at that. Just do a little quick visual on that timing belt, since there's no stickers or anything under here indicating it's been changed recently. A lot of times there will be an indicator you can put up here somewhere and show that you've replaced the timing belt. So all right, nothing about that timing belt there leads me to believe that it's new. It looks pretty worn. It's obviously totally not in shreds or anything like that. I've seen some like that, but it's pretty worn. Nothing makes me believe it's new. Nothing will lead me to believe it's going to snap the next time you start it up, but according to the mileage, it's definitely time to consider doing that timing belt. So we will bring that up and look at the other fluids here. Okay, everything up here looks good. We're going to move to suspension and then we'll be done. All right, so we've got this jacked up. We're going to check brake pad life here. We're going to check suspension, ball joints. These tires are dry rotted. You can see there. They're actually really worn as well, so new tires definitely recommended here. Rotors don't have any uneven wear on them. We'll look at those pads in a second, and everything else suspension wise. I know these vehicles have problems with the wheel bearings. That's the main reason we were called out today, is the wheel bearing in the rear passenger side was making a lot of noise. So we'll feel that. These are pressed in. They're quite a tough little job to do, but you can grab them here, and that's actually got a bit of might be steering there. That's fine. I thought for a second it might have had some loose tie rods there, but I think I'm just turning that other tire on that other side. Brake pad life, basically brand new pads in there. So let's look under here. I'll stick you under there. You can see CV boot there's good, no leaking anything there. There's probably that sway bar end link. It's got its boots there, but looks a little twisted there. Bushing's okay in that lower control arm. That's good. So far so good, actually. I was expecting to see quite a bit more. So that tie rod, outer tie rod's a little loose, but nothing crazy. So I actually don't see anything suspension wise. I'll check this strut in a second. That's concerning here. These cars are so light you can really see it move when I put weight on it, but the strut is actually in great shape as well. It only bounces once. There, you put some weight on it, it comes up nice. So I let it down quickly with the jack as well to watch, not too fast, and it didn't have any bounce in it either. It settled and came right back up, so that looks good. We'll look at the rear brakes actually on our way out, and okay, rear brake pads still have definitely over half their pads left. The rotors are concerning here. They're very rusted, so I'm expecting that there's quite a bit of noise coming from those, and we can recommend replacing those rotors, but it's going to be up to the customer. All right, so I actually looked at the brake pads on the other rear side before we left, and there was quite a bit of uneven wear. They were a lot smaller on that side, so we're gonna replace brakes first, and then see if we hear any bearing noise, and then we'll do the bearings after that. But there's a good chance it's just brake noise while that's moving, and we'll see. We'll replace the brakes first, since those are obvious and we can see them. But that's a diagnosis well done. A little inspection well done. Looks like it was in great shape. So thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode.